Last month, we released some information to let everyone know that some things had shifted in regards to employment practices and hiring practices as it pertains to individuals with criminal records in Illinois. So there was a new law that was passed, and its generic name, if you will, was called Ban the Box. What that particular law did was basically prohibit employers who were looking to hire employees from asking on the application if someone has a criminal conviction. It also goes a bit further, and it actually makes some changes in regards to how that is considered when ultimate employment is offered. So first of all, if you have an application process and on your application you ask about someone's criminal history, let me just tell you right now, you need to take that off of your application. You can't until you're at least in the interview process or until you've made a conditional offer of employment, you can't ask about someone's employment or about their criminal history, okay? But you can in those points, at those points. So in the interview process or at that offer point, you can ask about previous criminal convictions. And then at that stage, then as you gather that information from the employee, the only time that you can actually choose to make a decision or a contrary decision regarding their employment as it relates to their criminal history is if that criminal history really does have a substantial relationship with the position that person is seeking for the job that they're seeking. For an example, in our offices, of course, if you're going to hire someone who was convicted for Medicare fraud and they're on the Medicare exclusion list, of course, that would have a direct correlation, and we create undue risk. Actually, we create significant problems, as we've talked about in other videos and other articles. You couldn't do that. There would be that direct relation and create problems. Another example might be, if you're going to hire an accountant and they're previously convicted of embezzlement from a previous employer, of course, that has a direct correlation or a substantial relationship in regards to their particular position. So those would come into play. But even once you establish that, once you say, yeah, this is important, right? This has significant impact on my hiring decision as it relates to this particular position, there are additional steps that you need to take. And those steps include really kind of reviewing a list of 6 factors. And then once you're done reviewing that list of 6 factors, documenting. Of course, you always want to document these things, keep them in a file, specifically in regards to that particular candidate for the position, so that if ever challenged, you have the backup for the factors that you considered and why there is that substantial relationship with the position that they're looking for. So what are those 6 factors? Well, how long has it been since the conviction? How many times have they been convicted in the past? The nature and severity. How old were they at the time when the crime took place, right? And then what are the facts and circumstances surrounding that particular conviction? And then last is, what are the evidences of rehabilitation efforts? Now, each of those factors must be taken into consideration. And since they must be, again, we strongly recommend that you go through a documentation process and keep that on file for that particular candidate. So first and foremost, make sure that you take off any references to an application. Second thing, to the criminal record questions on any application, take that off. Second is, don't ask until you get to at least the interview process or until the conditional offer of employment process, and you can ask at that point whether or not they have a criminal conviction. Once you've gathered the data in regards to any previous criminal conviction, does it have a substantial relationship? And then you have to go through the 6 factors to make that decision. And once all of that's completed, then you can make an adverse decision. At that stage, you actually have to notify them in writing and give very specific inclusions that have to be a part of the letter and the notification that you send out to that particular rejected candidate. And so at that stage, we refer you over to the article that we have out there that we just issued back in December. But we wanted to make sure you were aware and that you had the appropriate procedures in place for your hiring practices, because all of this has recently begun and it's in play. And so we want to make sure that you're all covered. You just want to avoid any kind of complaints coming from the Illinois Department of Human Rights and we want to protect you, and we want to protect your processes. So hopefully this helps you out, and we'll catch you next week.